Hi everybody, thank you for watching Sandra's Art Studio. Today you are watching part 2 of a full body portrait that I painted with oils. And at this point what you're seeing is the blending portion where I've already laid down my patches of colors on the face, and maybe I'm doing some of the connecting the dots with some color on my paintbrush, but for the most part, I'm actually doing a lot of blending until I feel like this is looking the way I want it to look. So I leave the highlights to the last minute. I try to make sure that my colors are preserved, like I'm not going to muddy everything up and lose the midtones and lose the deeper tones in the blending. You don't want to do that. So be very careful about when you blend, just don't overblend. That is pretty much the key. Once you get comfortable painting, you may find yourself doing something that I do a lot, which is on my left hand. I paint with my right hand, but with my left hand, many times I'm carrying a lot of the brushes that I'm working with. Instead of cleaning every time, you do something light and then you move on to something darker, or you have red and then you have skin tone. So instead of cleaning your brushes every time, I'll just kind of like keep track of a small bunch of brushes that I keep in my left hand. And some of them may have very little paint and others may have a lot of paint. And then there's that big fat filbert brush that I like to use for blending. And that one is pretty much dry, pretty much clean. It may have a little residue from, just doing the blendings, but I make sure that that filbert brush is going to get cleaned every time I'm done. And I'm talking about a dry paper towel, okay? Not turpentine and all that, just dry. Because I'm pretty much just barely going over. When I'm blending, I'm barely going over all the paints that I've already blended with a brush that is not so loaded with paints. Okay, so it's all going to be in the practice and what makes you comfortable. So that comes with time. Another thing I like to talk about is making sure that you have enough paints mixed up. If it's going to be, let's say, an oil portrait, right, of like a whole body. In this case, I made sure that I mixed enough of the skin tones and at least the light, the mid, and the deeper skin tones. Everything in between, I'm not concerned about the mixes because I already have my established light, mid-tone, and darker tones. But you want to mix enough of that, because if you have to mix another batch, when, let's say, you ran out of it after you did the legs, and now you got to go again on the face or something, just, you want to mix enough. Trust me on that one. Because sometimes you could be just a little off. And that offness could be perceived after everything is said and done. So keep enough. If you think you're not going to have enough time to complete the job, let's say in a week's time or a couple weeks, I think a week's time. If it's going to be more than a week, then mix your oil paints with a little clove oil, and that will preserve your paints for longer. Now, I don't know if all brands dry the same, but I noticed like my cadmium red takes a longer time to dry. My white also takes a longer time to dry. My black takes little time to dry. My ultramarine is also one of those that dry kind of fast. So get familiar with what dries faster before you go ahead and start putting oil on everything, before you start blending clove oil on everything. Now, if you're going to try to finish everything within a week's time or one setting, well, personally, I like to use the paint straight out of the tube. If I need to move it around, if it's not moving enough, then I may use some linseed oil so it spreads better. So always keep in mind how much oil you have applied to your paints, and If you don't have an additive that is gonna dry your paints faster, then you're looking at like a 6 months waiting time before you can varnish your paint. That's why I like using my paint straight out of the tube. Maybe a little linseed oil because that does dry fast. And maybe, you know, in a month or 2 weeks, I can go ahead and varnish. So that's not too bad, you know, compared to a 6 month period before a client can get his commission job. By the way, if you're interested in having an additive that is going to speed up the drying time for your painting, then you want to add some LIQUIN by Windsor and Newton. That's the only one I am familiar with, and I will put it in the description if you want to try it out. So now let's talk a little bit about the lips. In this case, it was pretty much straight out of the tube. I used this cadmium red, and the only time I needed to change a little bit the color was in the corner of the lips, you know, like right at the edges. I add a little bit of brown, anything to warm it up a little bit more. The top of the bottom lip, I keep it a little bit lighter because that's where the light is gonna, normally if the light is above you, the light is gonna reflect right on top of the bottom lip, which it means the top lip is gonna hold a little bit of shadow before it curves up. Okay, so I don't know if that was too technical, but there you have it. So now let's talk a little bit about the hair. So the first thing that I like to do is apply the deeper tones, establish where that is, and then I go for the mid-tones, and I'm pretty much all over the place. And then the very last thing I do is apply the highlights. So normally for the hair, I will be using a flat brush to apply the midtones. And right now you're seeing it's very yellow. She's way blonder than that. But when I apply the highlights and I'm doing the blending, a lot of that yellow is going to go away. And after I have my midtones applied, I leave it alone for a little while. I move on to another part of the painting because otherwise things are just going to blend too much, you know, and I do want to have some blendability, but I also want to preserve some of the highlight colors that I'm about to put on the next time I get into the hair. So what to do at this point? Move on to another aspect of your painting. In this case, I'm going to move on to the feet. Something that helped me a long time ago, because I've heard people say that they can do this, but they can't do that. But to change the way you see it, what is it that you can't do versus what is that you can do, is just to perceive it as another shape. So instead of looking at, well, I can do faces, but I can't do feet, let's say, just look at it as another shape and pretty much treat it like you're connecting the dots. And that to me works really good. I don't look at it as, uh-oh, here I'm doing a part that I'm not really crazy about because I don't know how to handle it. No, it's not like that. It's always going to be, it's just another shape. And when you get into that part of connecting the highlights with the midtones, with the deeper tones, it is a lot of fun. It really does become a lot of fun. And I hope you guys are enjoying the video so far and help me with a like and the subscription and the notification. All of that will help me grow my channel. I really appreciate it. Also, let me know in the comments if you are the type of person that likes arts and crafts as well. I will switch gears. I will do oil portraits sometimes and then move on to doing polymer clays, sculptures or plastic sculptures. I have a line of hair barrettes that I make myself. So when it comes to being artistic and crafty, I have a wide range. And I was wondering how many of you guys are like that on a personal note. Let me know in the comments. Well, something I want to share with you guys is the outcome of this painting. Okay, there's a little story behind it. So the owner who commissioned me to do this painting was the husband. He described his wife as his world, and I further interpret that as her being his universe. And that's where I came up with the idea of doing the galaxy in the background. And I asked for artistic freedom, and he's like, yeah, go ahead and do whatever you want. And so I did. Anyway, when I was done with this portrait, I presented it to both the husband and wife, which, by the way, since then we became really good friends. I think they're amazing people. So anyway, I presented it to them, and she thought that the background color was not to her liking. She preferred a lighter background. And I thought, wow, okay, that's going to like defeat the whole galaxy thing. And I don't know how this is going to look. So I took a couple of days before I tackled the job because I wanted to digest that and imagine. But you know, I gotta be honest, I really didn't see it until I actually started doing it. And once I started doing it, and by the way, what I did was I took light gray and I thinned it out a little bit with turpentine, and I applied it lightly, and I ended up doing this 2 times, and then I had to reinforce certain colors. But at the end, the result was fun. Actually, it was nice. It looked like it was a very dreamy cloud, not a galaxy anymore, but it looked more like a swirl of clouds, and it was nice. It was very nice. So anyway, the moral of the story is, if you're going to be in this business, if you're doing it to make a living or to make a buck once in a while, you want to be open for changes. You want to be open for criticism, and don't take it personally. So I don't, for some reason, after doing tattoos and automotive airbrushing for so long, I have a certain attitude that it's only paint. It's super easy to change it. It's only paint. And it actually is another opportunity to further my skills, another opportunity for me to get better at my craft. And the challenge is on. And it actually turned out to be something really nice, which you are going to see this at the very end of the video. I hope you guys appreciate. Actually, let me know in the comments what you would have done. Would you have videoed the whole process from the get-go? Or would you have shown what you got on video and leave it at that? Because what I did is I finished the whole painting. I got the information from the owners that I had to change the background, and I did not record the change of the background because I thought this is probably going to make me look like I don't know what I'm doing, or I was not perceptive enough, or whatever. And later, the more I thought about it, the more I thought, you know what, I should have gotten this on video, because isn't life full of lessons anyway? And what am I doing here? This is a tutorial, right? So we're going to have situations, and here I am putting myself in front of all of you guys for what? It's all about the learning. So next time I have a boo-boo, I will definitely video it. What would you have done? I'm really curious to hear your honest opinion on what you would have done in this case. Anyway, I thought it turned out really cool, and it was a learning lesson, because for my next portrait, I think I want to get more information before I tackle it. And I don't think I want to even talk about artistic freedom. Not that that's wrong, but let's say not for a commission job. I don't think a commission job and artistic freedom belong together. I think that you want to get as much information down and go with that. Information, even like the color, the decor of their their place, their house, and where's it going to go. So all of those things. The more information you have on your commission piece, the easier everything is going to go, I think, all the way to the end. So I think on that note, I'm going to reserve my artistic freedom for the paintings that I do that are not commissioned, that are I'm just having a good time, and let's see what happens with it. And if it sells, it sells. But if it doesn't, it's something that I like that I'm going to be able to put somewhere in my house, right? But commission jobs, it's a different story. I still am very grateful for the opportunity that I had to take the challenge and meet their expectations. So that was nice. I really enjoyed it. And in the process, I made some really good friends, because it turns out that the people that commissioned me to do this painting are now my friends. And I really like them. They're a good company, they're good people, and I have a good time every time we meet. So on that note, I think I'm going to leave things here. And I'd like to see what you guys have for me on the comments, what your opinions are, what would you have done, and also please don't forget to give me a like, subscribe, and hit the notification. It's not gonna cost you anything, right? So help me out. All right, you guys, thank you so much for watching. Until the next time, bye.